Hey, it's Lisa. Today I'm starting load 514. So for the entire month of May, the majority of my layouts will be related to the past. I'm planning to interpret some of the prompts for not just my past, but for my father's past, because he has a big birthday coming up and I'm working on a mini album for him. So I know I need to do some pages for that. Today, though, it's going to be about me, or really about the time period that I was born. I've mentioned a few times I had my 50th birthday this year, just a few weeks ago, and I survived. So in the news this year, there have been a lot of 50th anniversaries, and maybe there always are. I just paid special attention to them. Things like the Beatles coming to America, the Civil Rights Act being passed, and this one, which didn't, as far as I could tell, get any press, but it should have. The first Ford Mustang rolled off the assembly line in April of 1964. This is not by any means the first one. This was in the 80s, and it was my first and only Mustang, and I loved this car. I drove it for 13 years. And I adored it. It was not my first car, and I will do a page about this. I have several photos of this, and I'll make them larger and do a page. But today's prompt encourages us to look at possibly the day we were born, or the year we were born, or somebody else in our life, whatever. I'm going to interpret it as the year that I was born and look at some of the things that happened that year and which ones were influential to me. Surprisingly, the Beatles coming to America had zero influence on my life, I don't think. There's nothing I can really tie to it. It wasn't the music that we listened to when I was growing up. So that one just sort of didn't apply to me. But also surprisingly, the Civil Rights Act does apply to me. And I wouldn't have thought that at first, but when I got to thinking about it, I realized that it had a big impact on me and my family. So if you're interested in how these things apply to me and the journaling that I'm going to be doing here, you can find that over on my blog post that links to this. But today's video is about the process of creating this page. I'm using one of the sketches from my sketchbook. I got a busy day, so I don't have time to create a new sketch or come up with anything. This is actually from a 2-page layout. I'm just going to use 1 page of it though. So I'm going to use this side of the 2-page layout where I have 2 photos, and I've got to fit the title in here since it was originally on the other page. I'm going to put the title right here, and then I had created a pocket for this, and I don't think I used the pocket when I did the sketch, when I did a layout for this sketch the first time around, but I need the pocket today because I'm going to have quite a bit of journaling to tuck in there. So I'm going to use this arrangement. I am going to stick with the chevron design, except I want my arrows to all go to the right. I want to show a forward movement and what happened in that year that has moved us forward as a society, or moved us forward in my life in particular. So that's what I'm looking to do with this page. One of the things I love about Load is you do things that you might never do. This is a page I would have probably never done, but I think it's going to be really interesting when it's completed. For materials, I went to my thicker stash. I knew I wanted to do a big 1964, and I have a lot of thickers with numbers that I've never used, but I wanted some large ones because those are probably never going to get used. And I picked out a couple of different ones. This is the one I ended up sticking with, the rain boots in this red foam thickers. They've hardly been used. So I picked a neutral background from Studio Calico, a paper that with some numbers on it. And then I've got a few other odds and ends scraps because I went through my collections and I just didn't have anything that really stood out to me. For some reason, I guess I'm going to have to research what patterns were big in the 60s or in the early 60s, because nothing was coming to mind as I was going through my collection. I could find 70s or 50s or whatever, but nothing for the 60s. So I decided to do something a little bit more semi-patriotic, but kind of concentrate on the numbers. I have for my little arrows, or my little chevron pieces, these things that I bought thinking they were photo corners, and I discovered the other day they were not, from Studio Calico, so those will work in nicely for those arrows. I've got some basic gray clips, and I have this, and you'll see what I'll be doing with this a little bit later on. Even though I'm concentrating on the year, I decided to go ahead and use the Today Was. This is from 2 Peas in a Bucket. So anyway, no, it's not. I'm sorry. This is from Amy Tangerine. So anyway, that's my page, and I'm going to get started pulling together some of these papers for the strips that go across here. So I'm taking a look at which papers I want to put where. that darker brown is just a little bit too dark behind the photos, and the blue is, there's way too much of that. It needs to be probably more of an accent. I like this taupe colored paper. It has a little bit of tone on tone design. It's not really quite white enough, so I'm going to have to add some of those other strips to make it wider. And I'm going to cut a couple of strips here of the blue and white stars, since we have some patriotic things going on here. I'm just not sure about 2 rows of that blue and white. That may be a little bit too much. Just making sure I have enough room for everything, and I am pulling out some of these paper clips. These were from an old collection from Basic Gray. I think I actually picked them up at a dollar store. Now I did pull together all the papers, and I went ahead and glued them together. I'm putting my photos on here. I need this as a unit because it's going to become a pocket. This is tape from Creative Memories. I'm marking where I want my pocket to go. I don't know whether you can still buy this tape, this photo tape. It's about the 3rd time I've used it in 2 weeks, so I need to look and see whether you can still buy this stuff. There's the red sticky tape. There's lots of adhesives, but I like for pockets to have something really good to hold everything together. And this will hold the band on as well. So I really need to be sure where it's going before I lay it down, because once it's down, it's going to be there. Just add a little more adhesive there over on the left, and this is not a very thick pocket, so it's going to hold maybe 1 sheet of paper. I went ahead and laid all those little chevron corners out there, and then I'm just picking out the colors and patterns that I liked. All right, still going to have those other objects at the bottom. I need some words to go across. I'm going to create this little strip with some words on it, so I'm using these stickers from Authentique that have lots of just random words, and trying to find things that would fit in there in Today Was a Day. The main word I want to use is historical, so I'm going to build that from stickers. And as soon as I started this, I thought, I don't have enough room. I should be going from the center out. So I quickly figured out this is all going to have to go on that one strip of paper that I had in mind going across there. The red was a little too bright. I found that ledger paper worked really well, so I put everything on a sheet of ledger paper, and I've trimmed it down. I decided, though, at the last minute to kind of create a banner-like with it, with the little banner ends. I was just going to have blunt ends, but I really like how the banner part came out. So it'll say, today was a historical day, and it has awesome and other words there as well. The thickers, fortunately, had not stuck really good. I'm sure that's a surprise. So I could move those over since I had them a little too far to the right. And then I can glue everything down with some Tombow adhesive. I thought I'd add a little bit of Distress ink also on that little banner. So I cut influences with the silhouette, and I've printed out my journaling here on some craft cardstock. It's now called Crumb Cake cardstock from Stamping Up. I'm going to go ahead and punch the top of this with a 1/4 inch punch and put that down in the pocket. And I forgot to speed up my video here. I'm sorry, it's very slow. But I'm just fitting that in. I did put the paper in at one point and then kind of measured how much I had to cut off. So I did that off camera. And I'm going to cut out a lot of the next part because my lighting, as you can kind of tell, there was a bit overexposed. So it's hard for you to see in a moment what I'm doing. But what happens is I put this little paper clip up there, and it seemed a little lonely. It just needed something. That crumb cake paper was blending in too much, so I end up adding the last strip of the blue star paper that I had cut. And I'm just going to glue that on. And this is where I have some trouble with the lighting with the camera, so I cut out kind of the rest of this off the video. I think we have our page complete. Let's take a look at our sketch. We've got our 2 photos and our arrows just pointed this way, the title here instead of the journaling, and then my embellishment down here was this die cut with these. I could have put something behind "Today was a," but I think it stands out well enough. You can see some of the details. This particular photo is actually the signing of the Voting Rights Act in 1963, but it was a photo that was available on Flickr under the Commons area, so I could republish it without it being an image that I had to pay a fee for or anything. So, just because something's on the internet does not mean it's free, that you can do whatever you want to with it. But the area in the Flickr called the Commons, and then there's lots of stock photo places that you can get photos. So, since I'm publishing this on my blog, I wanted to make sure that I had something there that I could use. So thank you so much for following along with me in my journey today with Load 514. Still a chance to get in on that if you want to. I think, as far as I know, that you can go ahead and sign up, as it's still just the first day. You can find information about it on my blog if you'd like, and more about this page and the journaling that I did. Thanks so much. And the sketchbook that I showed you earlier is also available on my blog.